In today's episode, the pointless Lend-Lease. Since the beginning of the counteroffensive, Ukraine has lost up to 20% of all its Western armored vehicles. Ukraine has created a military uniform for pregnant women to send them to the front line. Propagandists regularly exploit the issues of socially vulnerable groups of the population to create their fakes. Hollywood stars visit to terrorists. Johnny Depp is going to Russia. Our analytical team at Detector Media is on constant watch, tracking the spread of the boldest fakes from Kremlin propaganda. I'm Vadym Miskyi, and for the next 10 minutes I will guide you through the key facts. Let's get started. Since the beginning of the counteroffensive, Ukraine has lost up to 20% of all its Western armored vehicles. This manipulative message has been spread by Kremlin propagandists, citing an article by the New York Times.
По-моему, они настолько раскрутили и разогрели эту тему со своим контрнаступлением, что практически там, если не полмира, то треть точно, ждали 11 числа для того, чтобы подвести какие-то итоги, чего же все-таки добились за это широко разрекламированное, широко анонсированное контрнаступление, как они его называли, и стратегическим, и разными. Если говорить о том, что в итоге, с чем в итоге подошли к 11 июля, к саммиту НАТО, то с 4 июля потери противника составили более 26 тысяч военнослужащих и 3 тысяч различного вооружения.
Analysts of the Stop Fake project have shown that, according to the New York Times, up to 20% of the weaponry, including Western models, used since the beginning of the counteroffensive may have been destroyed or damaged by the enemy. The authors of the article report that the level of Ukrainian armor losses later dropped to 10% as Ukraine changed its offensive tactics. Ukraine's Western partners promised to step up their military aid.
The United States and our allies and partners have moved mountains to provide Ukraine with critical air defense systems, munitions, and more. And so coming out of today's meeting, I'm grateful to all of our allies and partners for their commitment and their clarity of purpose. I've asked our friends to continue to dig deep into their military stocks, because we're going to do what it takes to support Ukraine's sovereign right to live free today and for the future. Now, during today's meeting, we talked about Ukraine's ongoing requirements, including, as I've said, its urgent need for ammunition. We also discussed plans to ramp up production at both the national level and the multinational level through the European Union's important initiative to produce more ammunition. We heard from the co-leads of the F-16 training coalition, Denmark and the Netherlands. They continue to make progress on a cohesive training plan and to help some very eager Ukrainian pilots learn to fly fourth-generation aircraft.
The propagandists want to convey the impression of Ukraine's failure on the battlefield and show the ineffectiveness of Western weapons. However, the New York Times article stated that not all Western weapons are used in the counteroffensive and that losses are exaggerated. Ukrainian air defense hitting civilian infrastructure is yet another manipulative message by Kremlin propaganda. The authors claim that the Ukrainian air defense forces are supposedly incompetent and often hit Ukrainian high-rise buildings.
Ночью ВКС России нанесли удары по портам Одессы и Николаева. По ним выпущено 6 ракет «Калибр» и более 2 десятков дронов «Камикадзе» «Герань». Известно, что в районе Одесского порта прогремели взрывы. Местные жители сообщили о густом дыме. Точные попадания зафиксированы и в порту Николаева.
Here are the effects of the nighttime shelling of Odessa. On July 18, the enemy launched 6 Caliber missiles and 21 strike drones. All of them were shot down that day, but the debris caused damages to facility in the port. The Ukrainian air defense system performed at 100%. Western politicians criticized Moscow for shelling Odessa's port after the withdrawal from the grain deal.
The common call, and the world made this call today. Here in New York, at the United Nations, every delegate from every country was totally shocked that Putin stopped this grain initiative again, because people could feel all around the world how much the grain from Ukraine is needed, has been needed over the last months. It was 32 million tons of grain going to around 45 countries in the world. And therefore, misusing this grain, using hunger as a weapon again.
Volodymyr Zelensky called Putin a sadist at a meeting with representatives of African countries.
Він просто садист. Зараз мирна ініціатива, подивіться, зернова ініціатива. Де в цьому коридорі військо? Де там постріли? Там зерно. Воно їде в Україну? Ні. Від цього залежить, нагодуються ли українці? Ні. Від цього залежить, чи буде голод в деяких ваших державах? Так. Для чого він блокує? Він фашист.
By accusing Ukrainian air defense of destroying civilian facilities, propagandists are trying to avoid their own responsibility for war crimes. This includes the threat of famine in Africa. Ukraine has created a military uniform for pregnant women to send them to the front line. Propagandists systematically exploit issues of socially vulnerable groups to create such fakes. Let me remind you that women's mobilization in Ukraine is strictly voluntary, and the creation of uniforms, including those for pregnant women, was initiated by volunteers at the request of the women serving in the army. For example, Ukraine's Western partners argue that the armed forces need women.
The United States military needs women. Our military is the best fighting force in human history. And to keep it that way, we need the best warfighters in every domain of potential conflict. And the only way to make that happen is by drawing on the talents of all of our people, and not just men, who happen to represent less than half of the U.S. population. And in return, we must create a military where American women can contribute the full range of their skills and strength, and where they can take advantage of all that a career in a U.S. military has to offer, like being a part of something bigger than yourself, and defending the values of freedom and democracy, and making a difference, and growing as experts and as leaders. We owe it to American women to get rid of bias and to wipe out the cancer of harassment and sexual assault in our ranks.
Currently, more than 40,000 women serve in the Ukrainian armed forces, with 5,000 of them on the front line. Johnny Depp is going to Russia. The Hollywood star's trip to the terrorist country was reported by the Kremlin propaganda. A video from the pre-premiere screening of the movie Jean Dubarry in Moscow, where the actor addressed the audience, went viral on social media.
Dubarry, we're all quite proud of it, and I hope you enjoy it. Hope you have a good time. Take care. Bye. Thank you.
These are just Russian fantasies. Johnny Depp's assistant commented on the information from the Kremlin media about the alleged visit to Russia and the controversial appeal to Russians. I quote, "Nope, it was a video made for the global release of the film, and there will be no visits to Russia." End of quote. I would like to add that at one of the recent concerts, Johnny Depp and his band Hollywood Vampires in Scarborough, UK, supported Ukraine. During the performance of the popular hit Heroes, a blue and yellow flag was displayed on the screen. general, many world-famous stars support Ukraine. Imagine Dragons made a video about a young Ukrainian who survived the Russian occupation.
She's supposed to be exactly what they want her to be. So pretty and pink, necklace and ring. Don't be heard, just be seen. That's not who I am.
The band Måneskin, the winners of the Eurovision Song Contest 2021, also supports Ukraine.
How are you sleeping at night? How do you close on your hands? That hail using your fuel to kill. We won't take it standing still. Watch us dance. How are you sleeping at night?
And the legendary Scorpions even changed the lyrics of the song Wind of Change.
Now listen to my heart. It says Ukrainian, waiting for the wind to change. In the wind of change.
I'm convinced that the wind of change will soon reach Ukraine and we will win. Stay tuned and good luck.